They don't have a hit. Just the last two innings, for some reason, I did things I've never done before. My hat was flying off, and that's never happened before, and I was just throwing as hard as I could. And I was throwing it where I wanted to, which was kind of amazing. People remember the numbers. 3 Cy Young Awards, 4 World Series championships, a perfect game. They remember the pitcher who retired at 30 years old while he was still the best in baseball. For a long time, people asked me the same question. Why did you leave? Honestly, I never thought there was a complicated answer. I used to tell them my arm could not take it anymore. That was true. It just was not the whole truth. Looking back now, I think my career really became a race against time long before anyone realized it. By the time people were calling me the best pitcher in baseball, I was already wondering how much longer my left arm would let me keep doing it. There were nights when I could barely sleep after a game. There were mornings when I picked up a coffee cup and felt the pain before I even picked up a baseball. Then 5 days later, I walked back onto the mound as if nothing had happened. That became normal, at least normal for me. I never liked talking about injuries. I suppose that was just how I was raised. If you were healthy enough to pitch, you pitched. If you were hurting, you kept it to yourself. Nobody wanted excuses. I certainly did not. Maybe that was a mistake. I do not know. What I do know is that there are parts of my career people never saw. They saw the strikeouts. They did not see the ice bucket waiting after every game. They saw another championship. They did not hear the conversations I was having with doctors. Enough time has passed now. The records belong to baseball. The memories belong to me. And if I am finally going to tell this story honestly, I have to begin with something most people never understood. The greatest years of my career were also the years I slowly realized the game I loved was taking it away from me. People sometimes think I became a great pitcher all at once. I understand why they think that. One season I was struggling to find the strike zone. A few years later, I was winning Cy Young Awards. It looks simple when you read it that way. It was not simple at all. When I first came to the Dodgers, I had a good fastball. Everybody knew that. The problem was I did not always know where it was going. Some days I looked like I belonged in the major leagues. Other days I looked completely lost. I remember walking off the mound more than once thinking, well, that was not very good. You try not to listen to what people are saying. You tell yourself, the newspapers do not matter. Honestly, they still find a way to get into your head, and there were people who believed I would never become the pitcher the Dodgers hoped for. Looking back now, I cannot blame them. I had not given them much reason to believe. The funny thing is, I never stopped believing I could be better. I just did not know how long it would take. Little by little, things started making sense. Not because I suddenly threw harder. Not because somebody gave me a secret. I simply learned how to pitch. There is a difference. I stopped trying to overpower every hitter. I trusted my fastball. I trusted my curveball. Most importantly, I trusted myself. By the time 1963 arrived, everything had changed. I won my first Cy Young Award. People started calling me the best pitcher in baseball. I will admit hearing that felt pretty good. I had worked a long time to get there, but there was something else happening that almost nobody knew. Around that same time, my left elbow started hurting. At first, it was nothing, or at least that is what I told myself. Every pitcher deals with soreness. You rest for a few days. You throw again. That is just part of the job. The trouble was my arm never really stopped hurting. It rested. It never recovered. I did not know it then. But looking back now, I think that was the moment my career quietly began counting down. At first, I thought it would go away. Every pitcher has aches and pains. That is what I kept telling myself. You finish a game, your arm is sore, you put some ice on it. A few days later, you are back on the mound. That was baseball. The problem was my elbow stopped following that pattern. Instead of getting better, it stayed the same. Then it became worse. I remember waking up some mornings and moving my left arm very slowly just to see how much it was going to hurt that day. That became part of my routine. Nobody in the stands knew that. Why would they came to watch a baseball game, not a man trying to hide pain. The trainers worked as hard as anyone. Ice, heat, bandage, medication. They did everything they could. So did the doctors. But every conversation seemed to end the same way. The pain could be managed. It could not be fixed. I never liked hearing those words. Managed, not fixed. There is a big difference. Still, every fifth day, I took the ball. I never wanted my teammates to wonder whether I was going to pitch. If I believed I could get through the game, then I was going out there. That was enough for me. Looking back now, maybe I was stubborn. Maybe every competitor has to be. The strange part is that while my elbow was getting worse, my career kept getting better. People talked about complete games. They talked about strikeouts. They talked about championships. Almost nobody talked about what happened after the clubhouse doors closed. That was fine with me. I had never wanted people feeling sorry for me. I just wanted the baseball, even if holding it hurt more than I ever admitted. I suppose that is the part people never really understood. The hardest battle of my career was never against the hitter standing 60 feet away. It was against the pain I carried with me every time I walked to the mound. And eventually that battle led me to a decision the entire baseball world would be talking about. There is one decision people still ask me about more than any other. The World Series in 1965. Game 1, people wanted to know why I was not on the mound. The answer has never changed. The game was scheduled on Yom Kippur. For me, that mattered. I know some people disagreed with my decision. I understood that. The World Series is the biggest stage in baseball. You spend your entire career hoping to get there. Then when you finally do, people expect you to take the ball no matter what. I never looked at it that way. My faith was part of who I was long before baseball became part of my life. If I had ignored that because it was the World Series, I do not think I would have been comfortable with myself afterward. That is just the truth. Don Drysdale started Game 1. It was not his day. After he came out of the game, he looked at Walter Alston and said something that has followed both of us for years. I bet right now you wish I was Jewish too. That was Don. He could still make people laugh after a difficult afternoon. I came back for Game 2. Honestly, there was nothing dramatic about it. No speeches, no big emotional moment. I picked up the baseball, walked to the mound, and did what I had always done. By the time the series was over, we were champions. People remember the complete games. They remember the celebration. I remember sitting quietly afterward, feeling every inning in my left arm. Winning did not make the pain disappear. It simply gave me something else to think about. Looking back now, I have never regretted missing Game 1. Not once. Baseball gave me a wonderful career. My faith helped shape the person who lived it. I never believed those two things had to be in competition with each other. The strange part was this. While everyone else was celebrating another championship, I had already started wondering how many more times my arm was going to let me stand on that mound. By the time the 1966 season began, I knew my arm was not getting better. The winter had helped. It always did. But rest is not the same as healing. I learned that lesson the hard way. The doctors were more direct than they had been before. They told me the arthritis was getting worse. They told me every season carried more risk than the one before it. Then one of them said something I have never forgotten. He said, "You have to start thinking about the rest of your life." I remember sitting there for a moment. Honestly, I had never thought much about life after baseball. Everything I did revolved around the next start, the next series, the next season. Now someone was asking me to think 20 years ahead. That was not easy. The strange thing is that none of this showed on the field. I won 27 games that year. I won another Cy Young Award. People talked about it as the finest season of my career. Maybe it was. Physically, it was probably my hardest. There were afternoons when I finished a game and wondered how many more times my arm could do that. Not how many more years, how many more games. That was where my mind had gone. I still loved competing. I still believed I could beat anybody in baseball. That was what made everything so difficult. Nobody was telling me to retire because I was no longer good enough. They were telling me to retire while I was still one of the best. There is something cruel about that. When your body gives out before your ability does, you are left with a decision no athlete ever wants to make. Looking back now, I think I already knew what that decision was going to be. I just was not ready to say it out loud. I did not wake up one morning and decide to retire. It was never that simple. The decision had been following me for a long time. Every visit to the doctor, every difficult night after a game, every time I asked myself if my arm could handle one more start, eventually all those moments became one answer. After the season ended, I knew it was time. I was 30 years old. Most players are thinking about the second half of their careers at that age. I was preparing to say goodbye. People were shocked. I understood why. They looked at the numbers, 27 wins, another Cy Young Award, another World Series championship. Nothing about those numbers suggested retirement. But baseball is not played on the back of a baseball card. It is played inside a body. Mine had reached its limit. The doctors warned me that if I kept pitching, I could lose the normal use of my left arm. That was not a gamble I was willing to take. I still wanted to throw a baseball. I also wanted to live a normal life after baseball. Sometimes people ask if I could have pitched one more season. Maybe. Honestly, I probably could have. The better question is what that season would have cost me. That is the question I had to answer. Not the fans. Not the reporters. Me. I loved baseball too much to let it become the reason I spent the rest of my life in pain. So I walked away, not because I wanted to, because I believed it was the right thing to do. Looking back now, I still miss the game. I think every player does, but I have never regretted protecting the future that waited for me after baseball. At the time, though, I did not know what that future was going to look like. That turned out to be another challenge altogether. People sometimes ask me if I wish I had played longer. Of course I do. I think every athlete wishes for one more season, one more opening day, one more chance to walk onto the field. I was no different. Sometimes I wonder what might have happened if my arm had stayed healthy. Maybe I would have won more games. Maybe I would have won another championship. Maybe none of that would have happened. You can spend a lifetime asking those questions. You never find an answer. What I have learned is that every career ends differently. Some players stay too long. Some never get the chance to choose. I was fortunate enough to leave while I could still compete. At the time, it did not feel fortunate. It felt unfair. Looking back now, I understand it a little differently. Baseball gave me more than I ever expected. It gave me teammates I will never forget. It gave me moments that still make me smile, and it gave me memories that have stayed with me much longer than any trophy. People have often said I was a quiet person. They were right. I never believed I had to explain every decision I made. I preferred to let my pitching do the talking. Maybe that is why so many people wondered why I disappeared so early. The answer was never complicated. My body had reached a place my heart refused to accept. Eventually, I had to listen to the one that was telling me the truth. When people remember me, I hope they remember more than the statistics. I hope they remember that every player pays a price to compete. Some prices are easy to see. Others stay hidden for years. Mine stayed